From childhood, what left the deepest mark on my soul was the silent devotion my family held for the Archangel Gabriel. I grew up hearing stories that seemed more than mere tales. They were chapters of a hidden truth, a legacy of miracles and protection passed down through generations. My mother, with her trembling voice full of emotion, recounted how, in moments of greatest need, she felt a strong yet gentle presence beside her, a message she always received from Gabriel, assuring her that God was watching over her. My father, in turn, spoke of signs and dreams where the Archangel provided precise guidance, often in quiet nights when hope seemed scarce. These stories seeped into my childhood, filling me with a faith as natural as breathing. I learned that Gabriel was not just a figure from religious teachings, but an entity who listened to our prayers, a bridge between heaven and earth, an unseen guardian watching over those brave enough to trust. These messages shaped my perception of faith and responsibility, as if I carried an ancestral mission woven into my blood. It was as if an invisible force had been preparing me from an early age for something that, at the time, only seemed like a distant hope. I grew up feeling connected to something greater, a bond that transcended time and space, a promise that my very essence shared with the divine. These roots strengthened me during times of pain, which always felt more bearable when I recalled stories of miracles, healing, and protection by Archangel Gabriel. Even in the darkest moments, when fear seemed to engulf everything around me, I clung to this almost inherited faith, like part of my spiritual DNA. And so, carrying this heritage of devotion, I began my journey with a quiet hope that my life held a purpose beyond human understanding, a purpose hidden among the stars and celestial promises. Since childhood, I sensed a quiet presence, a force that seemed to surround me during moments of solitude and doubt. Devotion to the figure of Archangel Gabriel was not just a family routine. It was something that permeated my dreams, my actions, and my uncertainties. Deep down, I knew I carried a calling, a mission softly whispered to me in quiet moments, in the silent prayers of long nights. This invisible connection kept me restless, yet at the same time, it filled me with hope and a sense of responsibility. At the core of this bond was the feeling that my life had a purpose, to shed light where there was darkness, to protect those vulnerable, and to trust that, even in the greatest shadows, an unseen force was still watching over us. Every day, I nourished this almost mystical hope that my soul bore a celestial signature, a destiny traced by a divine hand. But alongside that hope, doubts also took root. Could I truly fulfill this role? How could a child of such ordinary origins with fears and human limitations carry such a vast mission? Often, the shadow of doubt stretched long, threatening to extinguish the hope my family had so carefully cultivated. Yet, the feeling persisted, a profound connection to Gabriel, an affinity that surpassed logical understanding. It was a sensation that grew within my soul, like a seed planted by ancestors, which bore fruit in my intuition and in small daily acts of faith. That presence, silent yet powerful, fostered a quiet resistance, a force that pushed me to seek something greater than my circumstances seemed to permit. I sensed that every challenge, every suffering, was a trial by fire meant to strengthen this ancestral mission. And even amidst doubt, my hope remained alive, nourished by an inner voice that whispered my story was part of a divine plan, that the moment of reward would come at the right time. Living in the shadow of an almost otherworldly calling, I fought to hold fast to my faith, believing that one day, even if slowly, all the pieces of my purpose would reveal themselves, a promise only heaven could fulfill. My childhood was marked by periods of pain that left deep scars on my soul. From a very young age, I understood that my path would not be easy. Losses were frequent, beloved people who left through tragic circumstances, moments of abuse and abandonment that left invisible wounds, too heavy for someone so small. Amid that chaos, my only anchor was hope in Gabriel, my unseen protector, my bridge of faith to better days. I remember secretly clinging to the belief that there was a light beyond that darkness. Every silent tear, every quiet cry, carried the hope that somehow a higher force was watching over me, that my pain was a sign my soul had a mission of resilience and hope. My heart clung to stories of miracles passed down by my family, tales of divine protection, and messages that once seemed distant, but turned into sacred refuge during those dark hours. On those hopeless nights, I held on to words of faith, promises of Gabriel's protection. I felt my tears nourished a small hope that my suffering served a greater purpose, a message that still awaited revelation. Even when fear took hold, my soul sought a connection to something beyond the body and life itself. A hope whispering that my pain was a passage, a preparation for a grander destiny, a battle that would make sense within the universe's divine plan. That filial hope was like a seed planted in rocky ground, resisting storms. It remained hidden, nurturing me internally, a silent force that challenged me to believe my pain had a sacred purpose. And though I didn't understand everything, I carried that hope as a promise, that my story, no matter how arduous, was part of something greater, a mission of light, longing for eternity. When I reached adolescence, everything seemed more complicated. The hope I carried from childhood often clashed with feelings of emptiness and abandonment. The prayers that once felt full of faith began to sound hollow. Like, despite my determination, my pleas for help remained unanswered. My dreams of a deep connection with Gabriel, of feeling his solid, reassuring presence, seemed distant, almost inaudible amid my growing doubts. Gradually, the truths that once sustained me were questioned, and a gnawing unease took hold of my heart. How could such a powerful force, such a radiant light I imagined as Gabriel, leave me to suffer so much? Everything was out of sync. My experiences of faith clashed with a sense of abandonment. Many times, I felt my prayers were met only with silence, with a perceptible absence of the miracles I desperately sought. It was as if God was distant or unable to hear me, and my tears of hope turned into silent sobs of disillusionment. My connection with the divine began to weaken under the weight of these doubts. Childhood stories no longer felt like vibrant memories, but faded echoes of a hope slipping away, while my soul searched for a truth that felt more tangible amidst shadows of uncertainty. This was a phase of internal conflict, where fiery faith nearly turned into doubt. I desperately longed to feel a divine presence that would give me a concrete answer, proof that my struggles held meaning. But, in the absence of such answers, only hope remained. A silent promise echoing deep within my heart, insisting that my story still had an unknown purpose. That period of doubt turned out to be, in truth, a bridge preparing me for something I couldn't yet imagine. An internal test, a resistance against the deceptions of the world and my own insecurities. And despite the darkness, my hope to one day reconnect with the strength Gabriel conveyed to me stayed alive, even if it was nearly hidden. It was a faith waiting to be reignited, a flame patiently awaiting its moment to burn brightly again. Everything seemed to converge on that decisive moment, a life or death situation that nearly snuffed out all the hope I carried within. Can you imagine? A severe illness, an accident, or a tragedy. Something that shattered the calm routine of my peaceful life and pushed me to the edge of the abyss. My body began to fail. My strength waned, and an overwhelming sense of my journey nearing its end took root deep inside. At that instant, my heart thumped loudly with fear, an almost primal fear, of losing the light forever, of missing the chance to fulfill my mission, of leaving my story incomplete. Doubt cast its shadow over me. Is God, the one I've always heard about, still listening? Or is my time here finally over, and all that remains is this silent farewell? The surrounding silence seemed deafening, and I felt my hope ebb away like gentle waves receding slowly into the night. In that moment of total vulnerability, a kind of silent desperation invaded my soul. Yet, at the same time, a faint hope fluttered, almost like a whisper. There is still hope. There is still a light, even if it's too small for you to see now. And in that state of extreme despair, I sensed an interior presence beginning to intensify. A subtle force, an instinct urging me to believe that something greater still remained by my side, invisible to human eyes but present within my heart. This crisis, as dark as it was, turned out to be the most pivotal turning point, because even amidst the fear, a tiny spark of hope kindled, a hope whispering that my story was not over, that my pain was part of a larger divine plan I couldn't see at that moment. And although doubts tried to extinguish my faith, something within me insisted on believing that my journey still had a purpose, that I was not alone, that an invisible celestial force embraced me, steady and unwavering. That moment when my essence separated from my body felt like an unexpected liberation. An increasingly intense light began to fill everything around me, like a veil slowly lifting, revealing a realm of peace and hope my eyes had never seen in this life. It was as though my soul was freed from physical bonds, leaving behind all suffering, doubt, and fear, guided by a force as loving as it was powerful. I realized it was more than just a sensation. It was a profound experience of transition, my soul floating in a space of infinite calm. The physical senses, once so alive, started to fade away, giving rise to a pure, almost sensory perception. A blend of vibrant colors, gentle sounds like celestial melodies, and a feeling of embrace that filled every fiber of my being. The sensation of leaving the body was accompanied by an indescribable peace, as if that place was my true home, waiting for me long ago. With this liberation, an invisible force led me along a path of light and harmony. My consciousness expanded, connecting with something greater, a presence that conveyed safety, hope, and divine love. It was like floating over a celestial landscape, where everything seemed to vibrate in a symphony of colors and emotions. My soul felt immersed in a silent celebration, a transition that, though beyond human words, brought the certainty that I was now on the way to a sacred encounter with the divine. In that moment of transition, I understood that my soul's journey had truly begun. No longer just a passage of pain, but a preparation for something beyond the physical world, a profound connection with the infinite love of God and His celestial beings. It was an experience that would forever alter my understanding of what it truly means to live, die, and restart within the spiritual universe. Suddenly, before my eyes, a figure emerged from a radiant light that seemed to surround everything in an aura of peace and mercy. It was as if the very sun had materialized before me, a luminous presence slicing through the darkness of my soul with its loving strength. Its features were gentle yet commanding, a figure exuding power, mercy, and endless hope. Its eyes were like two wells of deep understanding, shining with the wisdom of ages and conveying a calm that calmed any doubt or fear. The surrounding light was so intense that it appeared almost translucent, like a curtain of hope slowly unfolding across the sky. The feeling I had was that everything around me ignited with a celestial softness, an energy that sustained the universe and welcomed me into its vastness. Without words, this light communicated an innate message of protection, peace, and love, an unwavering certainty that I was in a place of pure mercy, and that my life was now, at last, in the presence of one who understood everything. My eyes couldn't look away from that figure of light, which seemed to move between the human and the divine, a living symbol of strength and hope. I sensed that its presence had an essence beyond human understanding, a link to heaven that showed me that even in life's transition, there is a force that never abandons us. Its features were softly smiling, a gesture of mercy, and its gaze touched my soul profoundly, like a silent promise that the love of God is always within reach, even when everything seems lost. At that moment, I understood that my journey was no longer just a passage through suffering, but an entry into a realm of hope, protection, and mercy. This vision was a revelation. The purest divine love appeared clearly and luminously, confirming that my purpose, though hard to grasp, was guided by a force of light and hope that would never abandon me. Everything changed. My awareness opened to a new reality where hope and divine love are the very essence of all. The luminous figure that appeared before me remained silent, yet its gestures conveyed a message more powerful than any words could articulate. Its movements were gentle, almost like an invisible embrace wrapping around my soul, inviting me to understand a truth that overflowed beyond what my eyes could perceive. Without speaking, it showed me a series of symbols and images, an understanding that bridged human limits, an invitation to embark on a journey toward a greater purpose. I sensed that its presence was trying to tell me that my pain, my suffering, and my difficulties were not random. They were part of a sacred mission, a calling I was meant to accept with courage and faith. Every movement of this light conveyed a message, that my life had a divine reason, that my tears carried a force of resilience and hope, and that my journey held a significance far beyond immediate understanding. It was a silent, but profound, connection, a communication of love and hope that transcended human words. At that moment, I realized that it was not just a meeting with a divine entity, but an invitation to assume my responsibility on this journey. The purpose shone through symbols: a cross, a radiant light, a ladder ascending to the heavens, served as reminders that my mission was intertwined with God's love and the celestial forces. They wanted me to understand that each pain, each struggle, each tear had a reason, that my soul carried a flame of hope capable of illuminating my own darkness and that of others I would encounter along the way. I felt drawn by this silent invitation, pulsating in the air, like a heartbeat of hope resonating within my heart. It was guidance that, without words, strengthened my courage to move forward, carrying the certainty that there was a greater reason behind everything. The clear message: my path was part of something divine, a mission of love that encouraged me to trust, even through the greatest hardships. Thus, that luminous presence invited me to embrace the purpose of my journey with renewed faith, knowing I carried within me a force of hope, a light that no darkness could ever extinguish. Suddenly, a profound sense of connection swept through my mind and spirit, as if an ancient door swung open to reveal a forgotten story from the depths of time. Memories of past lives, once thought to be mere hypotheses, emerged with surprising clarity. It was as if my soul had been transported to a distant past, where visions of ancient battles, guardians of light, and souls chosen by God to maintain the balance between good and evil appeared before me. In those visions, I saw myself as a warrior, a figure of strength and hope, carrying the weight of an ancestral mission, an enduring force that transcended eras and connected directly with that luminous presence, like a transmission line of a sacred lineage. It was as if my very essence had been shaped by a purpose that transcended time, where my actions today were just a continuation of a resistance lineage stretching back to ancient days when humanity sought its redemption. These memories awakened a forgotten part of myself, one that understood my essence was not born in this moment alone. It was an inheritance of many who resisted darkness, fought for hope, and believed in the power of divine love. And more than that, I perceived that my bond with Gabriel and the divine was not accidental, but a connection within a lineage of souls that endured tough tests, carrying this light forward through their lives and sufferings. In this silent clarity, understanding my spiritual origin gave me greater strength to accept my current pains. I saw that my sufferings were also a reflection of a broader mission, a mission that crossed ages, and that my soul carried an inheritance of hope, resilience, and courage, a timeless connection that had not been lost through the ages. From that moment on, my journey felt less like an isolated struggle and more like a continuation of an eternal story of resistance and love, one that would never fade, no matter how many centuries passed. In that moment of deep unity, I felt that Gabriel, the archangel I had once heard about in childhood stories, also carried his own pains and losses. His eyes, now shining with eternal mercy, began to reflect his personal experiences of suffering, loss, and battles fought silently in the infinite. It was as if, in our connection, our pains intertwined, creating an invisible bridge of resistance between humanity and the divine. He showed me that his tears and trials had not been in vain. Every loss, every hardship had strengthened his resolve and compassion. Somehow I felt as if I was a mirror of my own soul, a soul that had suffered and fought to keep its fire of hope burning. And upon witnessing his journey of resilience, a greater force, an understanding that my tears too were acts of resistance, flooded my heart. Gabriel, with his silent presence, revealed that his experiences of suffering had fueled his capacity to love, protect, and guide those still battling in darkness. His pain was not weakness, but a source of strength, a testament to endurance. And in that profound connection, I realized that my own difficulties were also a form of resistance, a way to strengthen my faith and hope amidst suffering. Our bond was not merely one of protection. It was a brotherhood, an eternal union of souls who learned that love and pain walk together on the path of resisting darkness. I understood that my pain had a sacred dimension, proof that my soul still had a mission of resistance. And just like Gabriel, I too could turn my tears into a powerful weapon of hope. At that moment, the feeling of connection intensified, and my hope grew stronger as I recognized that my suffering was part of a great story of resilience and love, one that even time could never erase. As my gaze fixed on Gabriel's radiant presence, he revealed symbols that echoed deeply in my soul. On the horizon, an arch of light began to form, a brilliant glow stretching across the sky, connecting infinity with the present moment. It was a symbol of hope, a bridge linking my present pain to the peace that awaited me. The arch seemed like a silent invitation for me to look beyond my limitations, to see the possibility of transformation and eternal hope. Simultaneously, from the distant echo of a silent sky, I heard trumpets sounding, a gentle yet commanding call that seemed to fill the entire space with a summons. Each blow was like a call to action, a sign that the waiting period had come to an end. The trumpets were the voice of the cosmos, alerting me that my responsibilities were becoming clearer. It was time to awaken my inner strength, to rise and prepare for a new phase in my journey of light. Gabriel indicated that these signs, the arch and the trumpets, were celestial messages, reminders that the time for change was near. These symbols carried a message of hope, that the suffering and trials we endure serve a greater purpose, and that a new chapter of hope, action, and transformation was on its way. They were divine signals saying, "Get ready, victory is approaching." This feeling that the waiting was over strengthened my faith, the power of divine love, and the certainty that everything is connected by a greater plan. The signs were clear testimonies that my journey of resistance and hope was just entering a new phase, a cycle of renewal and light. With my heart beating to the rhythm of these messages of hope, I felt called to move forward with renewed courage and faith, trusting that God's promises and His angels will never forget His children. Within that radiant light, a profound lesson emerged. Patience is an essential virtue for those who walk the path of the light warriors. Gabriel, in his silent way, showed me that resilience isn't just about strength or courage, but also about trusting in the divine timing. Every symbol, every sign he showed me, explained that the true warrior doesn't let the storms of life rattle him with their swift tempests, but instead learns to trust in the wisdom of the universe and the rhythm of divine love. He conveyed that patience is a powerful tool, a trait that distinguishes those who give up from those who persist. Even in the deepest pain, the celestial warrior understands that every trial has its moment of fulfillment. We learn to embrace suffering as an opportunity to strengthen our souls and refine our faith. It's in waiting, in silent trust in God's love, that we shape true resilience, a resilience born from unwavering hope. The lesson from that moment was clear. My mission requires me to learn to trust divine timing, even when everything around me appears to be falling apart. Just as Gabriel, who faced battles through eras, fought through the ages, my path also demands perseverance, resilience, and a steadfast faith that, in due time, light will overcome darkness. That patience, that inner strength, is a trait of those who understand that hope never truly dies, even when hardships seem insurmountable. Knowing that patience is a virtue of a celestial warrior, I realized that my pains are not merely obstacles, but steps in a divine learning process. Practicing this virtue connects me to a higher power, one that teaches me to wait with confidence, knowing that God's hope and love always triumph. This was the true gift of my encounter with Gabriel. Understanding that true resistance is tough, but also an art of trusting in eternal hope. With his luminous presence, Gabriel shared stories of battles spanning ages and worlds, a narrative of resistance, courage, and hope. These stories weren't just lessons, but deep teachings imbued with the essence of his celestial journey, a living proof that fighting against darkness is ongoing, yet always won through love and perseverance. He spoke of ancient light warriors, beings of hope who, despite staggering losses, never abandoned their faith. He told me of battles against deep shadows, of pains that strengthen rather than weaken, and of victories that come only after long trials of resilience. Each story illustrated a universal truth. Suffering isn't the end, but a school of true strength. In the eternal battle between light and shadow, hope is the most powerful weapon, and resistance is the virtue that never expires. Gabriel emphasized that his own history, full of losses and triumphs, is a testament that the strength of a celestial warrior isn't measured by the absence of pain, but by the capacity to resist, persist, and love even amidst darkness. These stories reveal that every battle carries a lesson, and that today's tears are the seeds of a greater hope awaiting tomorrow. Through these memories, I understood that my pain is part of this larger struggle, a fight that transcends time, a battle of resistance that continually makes us stronger. They are stories from unseen worlds, of souls who endured and emerged victorious, now part of a hope stream capable of reaching the stars. These tales nourish my soul, reinforcing the certainty that even in the harshest trials, hope endures, because it is the inheritance of authentic warriors of light. As my soul absorbed Gabriel's stories of resistance, a new set of signs whispered to my heart, distant trumpets sounding, a subtle, yet profoundly meaningful call. They weren't merely musical instruments, but symbols of a universal summons, clear, messages that the time to awaken and embrace my responsibility had arrived. Each note, each echo, seemed to traverse the space of the unseen realm and reach the core of my being, awakening me to a higher level of awareness. These trumpets resounded in my mind as divine reminders, rousing my attention to what truly matters. That my mission was no longer just a distant dream or a faint hope, but an active responsibility. They signaled that my preparation had culminated, and the moment to act, to endure with faith and to spread hope, was approaching. Their sounds notified my spirit that my struggles and pains served a purpose, an urgent call for me to accept my role as a bearer of hope and resistance in the cosmic battle. They were celestial alerts, echoing like a plea for transformation, reminding me that the period of waiting and reflection was giving way to action. The signs were unmistakable. My resistance journey was intensifying, and my courage needed to consolidate. The vibration of those trumpets rang out as a declaration that darkness would not reign forever, that a greater light was revealing itself before me. My heart thumped strongly with this message, feeling that the universe was waiting for my response. A response of faith, hope, and strength. And with each sound, my commitment grew stronger. To accept the divine call, to endure pain with bravery, and to move forward with the certainty that my struggles were part of a larger plan of hope and love. Those trumpets were divine signals announcing that the moment of hope's resurrection had arrived, and that my soul, filled with faith, was ready to fulfill its sacred mission. While absorbing symbols, stories, and messages of hope, a profound realization took hold within me. I also carried attributes of Gabriel himself. Those qualities, courage, protection, hope, and resilience, already dwelled in my heart, often unseen but present like a divine seed beginning to germinate consciously. Feeling that my essence reflected the virtues of that archangel became a powerful confirmation. My struggle, no matter how tough, also bore the radiance of celestial strength. I understood that my courage was not merely human resolve, but a manifestation of an essence that came from heaven, a lineage of souls trained to resist darkness in the name of love. The divine protection that my spirit carried was a reflection of the protection Gabriel offered to me and many others, a silent yet immense force that seemed to say, "You are similar to what we deeply venerate." This realization fostered a deep sense of pride and connection, as if my pain and resistance were an extension of the strength of a celestial warrior. This insight had a profound impact. I saw that my internal qualities, many hidden or forgotten, were actually expressions of a greater force. Everything I once saw as limitations transformed into sacred attributes, proof that Gabriel's essence also lives within me. Just as he faces losses, battles, and trials, I too could recognize my divine strength, inherited from an eternal lineage of resistance and hope. And in that moment of revelation, my spirit filled with renewed hope. No longer just a vulnerable human, but a conscious bearer of celestial virtues, a warrior of light. This understanding strengthened my faith that all my struggles carried a higher meaning, an ongoing legacy of hope and strength that would never cease, for it burned within my soul, reflecting Gabriel's light and that of all celestial warriors. Gabriel, with his silent presence, revealed to me that the most powerful prayer is the one born from the sincerest feelings of the heart. He showed that when a soul prays with authenticity, without masks or pretenses, the connection with Mar, the divine, becomes complete, direct, almost tangible. In the silence of that encounter, I felt his enveloping love, and I realized that my bond with God, with his angels, and with Gabriel itself didn't depend on complicated rituals, but on an inner truth. The soul that prays with a heart full of calmness and hope is like a river finding its way through the rock of the universe. Every word spoken with sincerity echoes in God's heart, a bridge of love and trust. And as I experienced this, I felt my own divine love blossom within, a sense that my prayers were not just words, but expressions of my purest essence, a surrender that nourished my hope and strengthened my faith. Gabriel showed me that the most genuine prayers come from an open heart, one capable of vulnerability, hope, and gratitude. He assured me that by placing my hope in the strength of love, not just in my human strength, my bond with him and with the divine would deepen. Following this, my soul felt even more connected to the universe, as if each prayer was a seed cast into the sky, welcomed by God's mercy and benevolence. At that moment, I understood that my faith grows stronger when the heart is truly present in prayer, for it transforms words into vibrations of love and hope. Thus, my direct connection is reinforced, nourishing my soul with courage and peace. This simple yet powerful truth reminded me that my most authentic prayer is the one from the heart, pure, sincere, and full of hope, a direct path to divine mercy and the strength I need to continue my journey of resistance. In that moment of deep connection, Gabriel revealed to me a truth that had remained hidden in my relationship with pain and suffering. Everything we face has a greater purpose. He showed me that my suffering, no matter how difficult, was not in vain but a bridge to spiritual growth, preparing me for something greater. Every tear, every painful trial, was a seed of transformation that the universe was planting within me. Seeds nourished by faith, fostering a hope for redemption and renewal. He explained that suffering is a bridge, a passage that transports us from a state of limitation to one of liberation and hope, that our pains are not just punishments, but divine lessons shaping and strengthening us. Just as storms leave the soil more fertile, my recent pains were preparing my heart for a deeper understanding of God's love and mercy. Gabriel emphasized that all pain is preparation for something we cannot yet see, but which, through faith, will turn into light. He invited me to reflect on how my own pain was contributing to my spiritual journey, fueling my resistance, renewing my hope, and reinforcing my trust that everything happens for a divine reason. From his revelation, I realized that my struggle had a sacred purpose, an opportunity for growth that filled my soul with hope even in the darkest hours. I understood that by accepting my pains with purpose, my resistance became an expression of unwavering faith, and my heart a bridge of hope connecting me to divine love. This insight offered me a new way to see difficulties, as preparation for a higher surrender, where my soul is molded in honor of God's love, moving toward an ever-burning hope. In the silence of that celestial encounter, Gabriel, whose voice, though silent, carried immense power, made a promise that echoes through the eternity of my soul. His protection would never abandon me. Every tear, every pain, every fear, that whole seed of suffering, was being carefully kept within divine memory, part of a greater plan of hope and renewal. He reaffirmed that every tear shed in those moments of hardship was also a seed of future hope, a step in the journey of a soul that would never truly walk alone. Deeply felt that my pain wasn't merely a fleeting trial, but a bridge to the strength that God grants, an unbreakable force that could never be erased. Gabriel declared that his protective hands are always with me, even when my vision of hope feels scarce and distant. Every challenge, every battle was, in truth, a quiet preparation for a new phase, one where my soul would have enough strength to withstand any shadow, any pain, because I bore the promise of divine protection that never diminishes. This trust in divine support brought me a tremendous peace. I knew that, regardless of the path, the hardship, or the suffering, I would never be forsaken. Every tear I shed became a hopeful seed gradually sprouting in a garden of faith and resilience. That promise of constant aid reinforced my will to resist, endure, and believe that divine light will always prevail, even through the longest nights. In this way, my journey of resistance took on a new dimension. The certainty that God's mercy would never abandon me, and that with Him, I could cross any storm. On the horizon, a sacred image began to slowly take shape, an arch of light, a luminous bridge stretching endlessly from heaven to earth. This image was more than a simple natural formation. It was a living symbol of hope, carrying within it all the promises of peace, healing, and transformation. Its radiant glow illuminated my soul, strengthening my certainty that, even in the darkest moments, an eternal connection exists between present suffering and future peace. The arch of light looked like a bridge linking my current pains to days of rest and hope. It shone with the promise, "You are not alone, hope endures, and there is a purpose in your journey." Each color reflected a virtue: hope, faith, resistance, and divine love, all intertwined along its curvature. I felt uplifted by this image, as if it were a reminder that my struggles, no matter how intense, are part of an everlasting hope, part of a promise that everything would be renewed. This symbol of eternal hope filled my heart with courage, even when my strength seemed almost exhausted. I gazed at the Arch of Light as a celestial signature. That victory, peace, and God's mercy are within reach. Its presence propelled me to move forward, trusting in the promise that the dark clouds encircling me are temporary and that a new clarity of hope would soon open in my life. With this sacred image, I felt my spirit strengthened, ready to overcome any obstacle, knowing that God's hope never ends, and that my journey of resistance is also a voyage of light and spiritual renewal. As Gabriel's light gradually softened, a feeling of closure and farewell began to settle gently in my heart. He showed me that although this encounter had been a profound moment of learning and hope, my time in that divine realm was approaching its end. The great force surrounding me indicated that my mission within the spiritual dimension was nearly complete, that it was time to say goodbye to that luminous presence which had been my refuge and guide for so long. The moment of departure was marked by an indescribable peace, a clear understanding that all the messages and symbols entrusted to me were now engraved in my soul. Gabriel, silently yet unmistakably, signaled that my strength had been renewed, and now it was my turn to return to my physical life with the certainty that my mission of hope and resistance had not been in vain. Like a seed detaching from a branch, my soul prepared itself for the return to my body, carrying all the divine strength and love, ready to illuminate my path back to life. I sensed that my connection with the heavens remained intact, even in silence, and that my soul would be eternally linked to that beacon of hope. The silent farewell transformed into a promise that this connection would never be broken, and that my pains and struggles held a greater meaning. I had been prepared to continue my journey on earth as a bearer of hope and resilience. And so, that moment of farewell became a sacred commitment to move forward, carrying the messages of love, strength, and faith, with the certainty that Gabriel's light would always accompany me, guiding my steps toward the divine purpose. Before returning to my physical body, my soul found itself in a deep silence of preparation. It was a moment of introspection and understanding that all I had lived, received, and learned carried a sacred meaning. The realization that my pains served a divine purpose clarified my mind and filled my heart with gratitude. In this state of inner peace, I saw that my experiences were not mere obstacles, but precious lessons, shaping me for an even greater mission on earth. The connection with Gabriel, previously silent, had now become a presence of love and infinite wisdom. The messages of hope, resistance, and faith I received during that encounter solidified into a deep certainty that my soul, even after this phase of learning, was being prepared for a conscious return to the physical realm, carrying all of celestial strength. I felt that this silent preparation was fortifying my courage, helping me understand that my journey of resistance had a higher purpose, one that might be beyond my current understanding, but was rooted in renewal, hope, and divine love. In the silence of this final phase of preparation, my soul absorbed the certainty that all the lessons, symbols, and messages received would not be forgotten, but deeply engraved within my core. Each moment of that sacred encounter reinforced my confidence that my return to earthly life would be a continuation of a mission guided by love and hope. With this clarity, my soul felt ready to embrace the next step with renewed faith, knowing that the divine would accompany me every step of the way, guiding my journey of resistance and light that awaited. As my soul prepared for its return, a renewed sense of connection with the cosmos filled me entirely. It was like an invisible thread linking me to the stars, to the universe, and to everything divine. This feeling of connection was not merely an intellectual idea, but a vibrant force pulsating within my heart and deepest essence. It was the power that reminded me my journey in this life had a higher purpose, supported by an eternal web of love and hope. I sensed that all the universe's energy was uniting in a force of renewal, as if every star aligned to strengthen my mission of resistance. This cosmic connection nourished my faith, a faith that, even without words, conveyed a certainty that when my soul returned to the physical body, it would carry this hope-powered strength that would never fade. It was a force originating from the very heart of God, passing through the invisible hands of the archangels and reaching every fiber of my being as a promise that I am part of something far greater, something divine. In that moment of integration, I understood that my link with the universe was an inexhaustible source of power. Every star, every silence, every symbol I had received contributed to this internal strengthening, a force that encouraged me to move forward with unwavering courage and faith, knowing that my presence on Earth carried a mission of hope and resilience, woven into the fibers of the cosmos and fed by divine love. With this renewed strength, I felt my journey becoming an expression of eternal light, a narrative of hope that would never extinguish. While my soul solidified its connection with the universe, one last image emerged vividly on the horizon of my consciousness. Symbols of hope that remained steadfast in my mind. The arch of light, familiar to me now, revealed itself as an eternal symbol of hope, a bridge uniting my present pain with promises of future peace. Beside it, trumpets echoed as vibrant reminders that awakening to a new phase of hope was near, divine signs reaffirming that suffering is only temporary, that light always returns. These final symbols, stored deep within my being, represent an everlasting hope, an unshakable certainty that even in the darkest nights, God's light will shine for those who trust. They showed me that my journey, with all its hardships, is part of a timeless hope, a divine promise that mercy surpasses any shadow. I carry these symbols within me as wounds of hope, testaments to a divine connection that transcends time and space. With strength and devotion, I felt my soul would eternize these symbols, keeping hope alive in every moment of my life, just as they remain eternal in the heavens. As a silent reply to the divine sky, my hope became a lasting force, nourished by the certainty that God's love is infinite. These symbols, now engraved deep in my soul, reinforce the truth that suffering is temporary and hope everlasting. My purpose to persevere in resistance and faith has grown stronger, because I now carry a light that will never fade, a hope that lives forever within my being. As Gabriel's light gently faded, a profound sense of responsibility settled deeply within my heart. It was as if, in that moment of peace and understanding, a silent promise was being etched into my soul, that my future would be guided by the hope, strength, and faith he had given me. I felt that, even as I returned to my physical body, doubts would no longer have a place. My mission of resistance, hope, and love was no longer just a choice, but a sacred vow I would carry throughout my entire life journey. The bond I established with Gabriel in that experience reassured me that our connection was eternal, an alliance rooted in love and service to the divine and to the souls I would meet along the way. His silent, powerful presence reinforced my trust that what was given to us in hope would never be lost, that this hope should be regarded as a vow of life, a sacred responsibility to bring light where there is darkness. With a heart full of certainty, I declared my dedication to fulfill my mission with courage, resist the temptations of despair, and move forward with unwavering hope, confident that with God and Gabriel by my side, everything is possible. That promise of commitment strengthened my resolve to fight, to persevere, and to serve as a channel of hope in this journey. I knew that by connecting to Gabriel's light, guided by love and faith, my life would take on a new meaning, a fresh direction rooted in the certainty that my resistance was part of a divine, grand plan. As that moment of union drew to a close, a profound peace settled within my being. The silence of the cosmos enveloped everything around me, a veil of hope draping my soul. In those final instants, I realized that this silent encounter had been a bridge between my journey of pain and the future of light, a transmission of strength and love that would never fade. I quieted my thoughts and calmed my anxiety, knowing that my soul was preparing for the final step, to leave the spiritual realm and return to earthly life. That silence of preparation was like a last breath of hope and sacred moment of full connection, where all my strength, love, and resistance mission were now deeply rooted within me. My heartbeat pounded strongly, filled with gratitude, courage, and a renewed commitment to carry this hope-filled light to those I would meet ahead. The sense of peace I felt in that moment became an eternal truth. My mission of resistance and hope had been strengthened by that encounter with Gabriel. Even in the silent farewell, his presence remained alive within my essence. I was certain that upon returning to my body, I would carry everything I had learned: the celestial strength, the everlasting hope, and divine love, to illuminate my path and serve those in darkness who needed hope. With this feeling of confirmation, my soul prepared for its next step, the return to the physical plane, with a heart full of hope and the unwavering certainty that Gabriel's light would always be with me, guiding each new day in the resistance driven by God's love. The first breath on earth felt like a wave of light flooding back into my lungs. Gradually, my senses began to reawaken to a reality still tinged with the subtle blend of the material and the spiritual. My consciousness, previously immersed in profound silence, started to clarify, revealing sensations of peace and hope I had never experienced before. Each inhalation seemed to fill my body with renewed energy, as if I were not merely breathing air, but the entire force of light that had accompanied me during that celestial encounter. For a moment, everything around me seemed in silence. Yet inside, a feeling vibrated like a silent mantra. I am here, alive, with a renewed mission. The sensation of lightness in my chest and contagious hope was unmistakable. I felt my organs working in perfect harmony, like a divine symphony, orchestrated by higher forces, that was bringing me back to the physical world with the certainty that my pains and suffering were merely one chapter in a story that was only just beginning to unfold. My breath quickened slightly, but in a calm rhythm, as the silence before dawn appears before everything is fully revealed. Opening my eyes, hearing the sounds of life, the whisper of the wind, the hum of the world around me, everything now seemed imbued with a newfound meaning. The deep peace I felt was not just an absence of difficulties, but a strength that transcended any physical trial. It was as if my soul was returning from a sacred rest, renewed and filled with hope that would propel me to continue my journey of resistance and light. With one last conscious breath, I understood. This awakening marked the beginning of a new phase, one in which my mission on Earth gained even greater strength, nourished by the spiritual experiences I had just lived through. I was finally aware that my path now held a greater purpose, that my breath, my life, and my actions would be guided by a divine force that would never abandon me. When I opened my eyes, something within me had changed forever. That encounter with Gabriel, the visions, and the symbols I experienced in the final moments of my spiritual journey, all of it now fused into a single perception. My life was no longer the same. The peace I carried, the renewed hope, the messages I received, everything now carried a profound meaning that had, until then, remained an obscure mystery. I realized that the imprint of that encounter was etched into my soul. My outlook on life had expanded, becoming clearer and stronger. The hope that once seemed fleeting transformed into an unshakable force. a certainty that filled me with newfound courage, more steadfast than before. I felt I carried a higher mission, a sacred responsibility to bring light wherever darkness sought to take hold. What Gabriel revealed was not just a gift of the moment, but a paradigm shift, a new understanding that my journey had always been woven by divine forces, guiding me and still guiding every step I take. The coded messages within the visions, symbols of hope, resilience, and love, had become integral parts of my understanding. They were no longer merely external references, but internal aspects of a life philosophy, a faith-driven attitude I needed to adopt in my daily routine. My mind opened to a greater dimension, that my pain, my suffering, my struggles had a purpose, and that with faith and hope, I could transform each challenge into an opportunity for meaningful spiritual growth. That morning, I realized that this new understanding was not just intellectual but visceral. The knowledge and experience merged into a deep certainty. My life had a sacred mission, and my connection with the divine was proof that my hardships were not the end, but a new beginning. A beginning of a journey where hope, renewed by everything I had lived, would drive me forward with courage and love. I embraced that vision as a guiding thread, a light illuminating my path even in the darkest moments, a new understanding that my soul had been touched by greater love, and that this love would lead me to the end. In that awakening, a silent transformation began within me. It wasn't a superficial shift, but an internal revolution that strengthened me at the very core. I felt my emotions intertwined with a new force, a deeper courage that emerged from every cell of my being. All the pains, once seen as limitations, became pure sources of strength. Every tear, every battle, started to feel part of a grand journey of resistance and light, a prelude to my new essence. My hope, once a flickering flame, transformed into a powerful weapon, a vibrant force pushing me to face any challenge with courage. I sensed myself becoming more resilient to adversity, more determined to fulfill my life's mission. This inner strength, nourished by my spiritual experience with Gabriel, had become a constant presence, an invisible fortress that nothing could destroy. It was as if an armor of hope, faith, and love had been forged within me, reinforced by symbols, messages, and experiences I will never forget. The pain that once felt like a heavy burden became a source of learning, a catalytic force of hope and resistance. In this process, vulnerability fused with an invisible strength, silent courage whispering, "You are stronger than you think." I began to realize that my emotions, once scattered or uncontrolled, were now aligned with a higher will, a force of resistance that only existed through divine love's aid. This internal renewal was a true rebirth, a firmer confidence, a hope that became a weapon against any shadow. I felt ready to face any challenge because my strength now came from a sacred source, fueled by light and mercy experienced firsthand. My soul filled with a courage I never believed I possessed, a determination that would push me onward, carrying the certainty that my resistance would never run out. Looking back at everything I experienced during those moments of encounter and awakening, a new understanding took root within my soul. Every symbol, every message, every vision, everything seemed to weave into a larger story, a narrative carefully guided by divine hands. I realized that my journey was not just a succession of events or emotions, but a tapestry of profound meanings, and work crafted by an invisible master who used my pain, my light, and my shadows to shape my true essence. Reflecting on it all, I saw that my path had been a continuous evolution, a transformation layered with resistance and hope. The difficulties that once seemed insurmountable now appeared as essential parts of a growth process, deep lessons about the true value of love, faith, and resilience. The sense that every symbol, every message I received had a purpose brought me an indescribable peace, as if my story had been written by celestial hands with an unambiguous purpose, to strengthen my soul so it could fulfill its mission of light in this world. More than that, I understood that my journey had been woven by higher forces that never abandoned me, even when the view was dark or hope seemed lost. My pain, my sufferings, my battles, everything had a divine reason, a purpose sealed in the silence of the universe. This deep reflection made me realize that my resistance and faith were part of a grand symphony, a harmony of love that transcended time and space, teaching me that my path was not in vain, but a vital piece in God's greater plan. With this new perception, I felt more connected to my essence, more aware that my experiences were seeds of hope now blossoming within me. Every symbol, every message had become part of a greater understanding that my mission of resistance is an expression of divine love, and that, by understanding it deeply, my soul is filled with gratitude and an even greater commitment to bring light and hope to those who still suffer. The experience I lived through, the encounter, the messages, the visions, was not only a personal revelation, but a spark ignited for a greater mission. I felt, with all the strength of my inner being, that my new phase now demands more than silent resilience. It calls me to be a beacon of hope for those still walking through darkness. My journey so far has been a divine gift, a testament that faith and resistance grow stronger when shared. Reflecting on everything I received during those sacred moments, I realize that my mission now is to transmit this renewed hope, this love beyond words, to others suffering and in need of light. My heart was filled with a sacred responsibility to help lift those who are in despair, just as the Archangel Gabriel helped me. Because I know deep in my soul that hope is not a gift meant only for me, but a force that can multiply when shared, a chain of love crossing journeys, generations, and boundaries. I felt that my steps should now be guided by this new mission, to bring hope, courage, and faith to the world around me. Every word, every gesture, every act of love would now reflect this transformation. My experience is no longer just a memory. It is a guiding light, a living testimony that resistance fueled by hope holds the power to change lives. And, in this moment of renewal, I am no longer just someone seeking strength in pain, but someone who raises their heart to help rebuild broken dreams. Internally, my commitment to share this hope has solidified. My mission is to be a channel of light, a bridge of faith, a voice echoing the promise that, even in the darkest night, the light of God prevails. With all the strength I have received, I know that my actions from now on will be driven by this sacred purpose, to bring hope to the world. This is now my greatest victory, and what moves me with love and courage.